Hi there, and welcome to the Grief and Rebirth podcast. I'm your host, author and trauma survivor Irene Weinberg, here to encourage you wherever you are in your healing journey. In each episode, I chat with incredible grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and celebs, as well as remarkable people who have inspiring healing stories to share. If you're looking for a podcast that's both uplifting and inspiring, you've found it. Let us help you find your joy in life. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds each of you so very well. I'm speaking to you from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey, and I am beyond delighted to have this opportunity to interview medium, author, intuitive coach, and spirit-guided musician Heidi Connolly, who will be speaking to us from Olympia, Washington. It feels like a very special homecoming for me to be interviewing Heidi, because I've already had the pleasure of interviewing her about two of her 4 captivating books. And today, I'm absolutely psyched to be interviewing her about her newest book titled Elevating Your HSP-ness: How to Live a High-Frequency Life That Amplifies Your Vibration, Celebrates Your Sensitivities, and Uplifts the World. I deeply relate to both Heidi and her enlightening new book because, like Heidi, I too am a high sensitive, also called an HSP or a highly sensitive person. The great news is that the virtues of being one of the 20% of HSPs in the world are now being recognized, lauded, and applauded. And Heidi, who is in the forefront of this movement, has many fascinating insights about the special HSP trait to share with all of us. Before Heidi begins to reveal why being an HSP is a blessing, not a curse, how being an HSP reveals our divinely intuitive natures for what they are, how HSPs partner the heart with the mind to uplift the world, and so much more, I want to share some of her background information with you. After graduating Harvard University, Heidi became a professional musician, worked as a corporate trainer in human resources, and went on to become the owner of Harvard Girl Word Service, a writing, editing, and self-publishing consultation business. Her path to connecting with spirit occurred after the death of her husband, Randy, in 2012, when Heidi experienced an awakening, a transformation, and a rebirth. I kind of can relate, Heidi. Having experienced the love of spirit through her connections with clients who go from suffering to understanding and peace, through creating healing music, and through her enlightened writing, Heidi wrote Elevating Your HSP-ness: How to Live a High-Frequency Life That Amplifies Your Vibration, Celebrates Your Sensitivities, and Uplifts the World for everyone who knows an HSP, who loves an HSP, who wants to understand an HSP, or feels lost in their own high sensitivity. Hey, Heidi, my fellow HSP, a warm welcome back to Grief and Rebirth podcast.
I never know what to say. I just look at you and I just want to smile and I want to hug you and I want to fly to New Jersey. And
that's it. The only thing missing is the bottle of wine. That's it.
That's right. That's right.
We're a little separated. We have West Coast, East Coast over here, but the love is there.
So the love is there, and it carries clear across.
So Heidi, let's begin by there are people coming on to the podcast all the time who haven't heard your other interviews. So let's give them a little bit of background information about your path to connecting with spirit after the death of your husband, Randy, in 2012, and your transformation and rebirth from that.
Yeah. And I know you can relate to it, Irene.
It happened to me too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so amazing to remember almost 10 years ago that's where I met you at the Afterlife conference, and you had a book and I had a book, and we both had husbands who had died and they were speaking to us, and the monumental shift for both of us, because neither of us expected that, right?
Nothing. Total surprise.
Completely lightning strike out of the blue. And then for me to start hearing from other spirits and to start questioning, who was I really meant to be without my husband? Because I really had no idea how I was going to survive. And I didn't necessarily want to survive. So there was a lifetime behind me of being a high functioning, very well hidden person. I pretended everything was okay when it wasn't. I had depression and anxiety and fear and all those things. And Randy's death sort of
exacerbated everything.
I plunged. I fell off the edge. And over time, speaking with him and hearing from him, he's the one who said, we have to write a book. And we wrote Crossing the Rubicon. He said to me, you have to change the way you see me, because we still have a partnership, but I'm on the other side. You have to let go of that grief to have rebirth. So, right? You have to let go of that so that you can heal, because right now your grief is keeping you trapped and locked into that vibration of misery.
And I have found when I speak to people, and I think you would agree, tell me if you don't, but I have found that if you don't do your healing work, that grief stays stuck in your body and they have a harder time getting through to you.
Exactly. They can't even get through, right? Because it's like layers and layers of stone built on you. So I call it a wet blanket, but it's more than that, because it also weighs you down. It's so heavy. And once he started to talk to me, the door opened. Now, it wasn't all fun and games, right? Because, and I'm going to talk about this a little later, but when you're having an opening, you don't know that what's happening. It can feel really, really uncomfortable. It's not necessarily more uncomfortable than living the life I was living, but it's manifesting in different ways. It comes to a head. It boils, where you can no longer resist who you really are, what your gifts really are. You can't resist them anymore. You're too sick, you're too unhappy, you're too uncomfortable, you're too freaked out, you're too miserable.
Actually, you're getting offered a lifeline, so but you don't know that yet.
You don't know.
That's the choice. Am I going to let this in and open this door?
Yes.
And walk through.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So he started telling me I had to buy a new flute because I hadn't played in a long time. And
did you hear his voice, or did you get an impression? How did
I am very much, I'm mostly clairsentient. So I feel the information and thoughts come in packets. I get my information through music. I get my information lots of ways. I don't generally see spirit in 3D form. But if I were like working mediumship with you, I would probably see on your left, I see your mother and your grandmother there in my mind's eye. So yeah, that's interesting because they're there.
Oh, that's wonderful. My mom is definitely enjoying this.
That's for after the show. But there's they are. They're so enjoying this. And so that's how I get it. But sometimes, mostly when it's Randy, my husband, and when he really wants to get me a message, he'll yell at me. He yells.
Yell at you.
Oh yeah. So I'll wake up and hear, Heidi, it's time to move. And I'll say, this is what happened last year. And I said, well, why? Where am I going? And then within a week, I had bought a new place in a whole different state.
Wow.
And he's the one who woke me up in the middle of the night that first time and said, get up, we have to ride. So I literally hear this voice and I think it's coming from someone there, and there's no one there. So he gets loud. Other spirits come in other ways, but over time, my whole life changed because with the writing of that book and learning to appreciate who I was. It took me a long time to get to, I'm an HSP. What does that mean? And writing this book and doing this.
Right. Well, on that vein, I want to ask you, because now you're a life coach for high sensitives and those grieving loved ones who have transitioned. So what inspired you to make this leap to this healing?
Yes. It was because people were asking me. I was just going along, trying to figure out who I was and whether it was really a gift, and having a psychic opening, which I didn't call it that. And it wasn't until I worked with a medium in Canada. She contacted me. Randy had contacted her to contact me, right? I didn't, yeah. And so I went to work with her, and she said, all the panic attacks you're having, the fear, all the stuff that's really freaking you out is a sign of a psychic opening. So when everything started to happen and I brought it home with me, people started to ask me, and I started to hear from their dead ones and loved ones. And I started to, they wanted to know. And I said, well, I don't know anything. Don't ask me. But they kept coming. And I realized that mediumship, it's very wonderful, as you know, to help people through a grieving process. It's monumental. It
certainly is.
Right? Grief is so all-encompassing and affects us all in different. There's shame around it, and anger around it, and guilt around it, and the missing the person on a physical plane is so powerful, right? It knocks you to your
and the mediumship really helps with that when you're missing that person. It's amazing.
But what happened, Irene, was that the mediumship was like, it was the open door to, you're struggling so much because you're so sensitive yourself. What does that look like for you? Why are you experiencing what you're experiencing in this profoundly deep way? I know how that is. And so I started to develop the tools that went along with that. And that's how it became more of a coaching endeavor.
Yeah. And it's wonderful that you made that, because I think a lot of people need this.
So many people.
I have a grandson who's a high sensitive, and he's 10 now. And in his early days, he'd cry at anything.
Yes.
And other people in our world would say, he's too sensitive. What's wrong with him? And thank goodness he has a grandmother who knows. And I'd say, are you kidding? He's like me.
Yes.
I have that trait. And by the way, you know what I found out? Abraham Lincoln was a high sensitive.
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi was a high sensitive. I said, we're in very good company.
And it's not 20%. I think, and I was going to bring this up later, but I think people like scientists, engineers, actors, musicians, we are all really, it's not 20%, it's more like 80%, the 80-20 in different ways on the spectrum. But it's the resisting it and told it's too much of this, too little of that. You need to be more logical. It's a terrible thing. I cried my whole life away. Now it really takes a lot to make me cry, right? And the kids need to hear this. Kids need to know that it's great to be who they are.
I told him, and he's proud of it now. He said, "Oh," he calls me Gaga. He said, "Gaga, I'm so glad that I'm like you. I love you, Gaga. That's great." And I said, "But I want you to know, because he has two brothers." I said, "They don't share your trait." So I've also taught his brother, who's more his age, to understand that there's nothing wrong with your brother because he's prompted to tears more often or whatever. You're both wonderful, but you just perceive things in a different way.
And that's why I want to start, I guess I'm jumping ahead, but to call it not a highly sensitive person. I don't want to even call it HSP anymore, even though it's the name of my book. I want to call it highly perceptive person, because sensitivity has that affect to it. It has that, a sense of being wrong, being bad, being too sensitive, right? When is it ever?
We're too. We're not too. We come upon things that can be very helpful to people. We sense things that takes other people longer to figure out.
So much so. We can sense truth versus lie. We can sense that, and people will deny it, right? It's so easy to say, no, you're wrong, or I didn't pick that up, but we know. And if we develop self-worth enough and confidence in our abilities, these brilliant traits we have, then we start to trust it.
Yes.
And then we can work with it.
So absolutely. So let's tell everyone, so they're all listening, and I'm sure they're on their edges of the seat. Am I a high sensitive? Yeah. So what is a high? You want to tell us how you identify if you're a high sensitive, and let's talk about some of the common myths that center around high sensitivity.
Okay. I made a very big inventory, a really long list in the book, because I wanted it to be so much more inclusive than what I had read about. The most common ones: you feel like a misfit. You feel like you're going through life misunderstood. You feel like whenever you express yourself, people tell you to be more logical, less emotional. You feel like you're from another planet. You feel like you just don't belong, right? You feel, and the list includes, and these are me. So, okay.
All right, but I'm identifying with a lot of them.
Okay.
I've been told I'm too true my whole life, and I cried at the drop of a bucket.
Yes,
coming up.
all the time. I cry in my flute lessons. I would cry. The teacher would go crazy with me. Heidi, can you stop crying long enough to play the flute? I just couldn't stop.
It's kind of a family joke. My grandson, my two grandsons, and I went to see one of the Avatar movies.
Yes.
And I took them to see the Avatar movies, and at the end of The Way of Water, my highly sensitive grandson and I were both crying. My other grandson was chewing on a straw. And I was able to say, see, there's, here we are. This is our trait.
Yes.
That's not your trait. But
Yes.
I think it really helped him to be more compassionate to his brother.
Yes.
And who was like his grandmother. And then I was proud of it and I owned it. And the one who was highly sensitive was able to walk away saying, oh, yeah, nothing wrong with me. That's the way I am.
So fantastic. This kind of thing can help your grandson and kids so much right from the start. And we'll talk about the sponge and the octopus and all that. It changes lives. It changes worlds.
And actually it helps you to accept yourself and helps other people to accept you.
Yes.
Who you are.
Yes. So the list goes on. You second guess yourself. You find it hard to understand signals from other people. So a lot of it, you need more Novocaine at the dentist. I need 6 shots instead of 1. All those kinds of things. And people get mad at you for it. People don't understand. You're chemically sensitive. You're this sensitive. You're that sensitive. So all those things combined are part of that spectrum of traits that people can.
And you don't have to have all of them, but you can have like a bunch of them that identifies you that way. And what are some of these common myths that center around high sensitivity? Besides
that, number one, right, right. Number one, that it's bad.
Right.
Okay, it's terrible. You're wrong. You're not perfect. It's something you have to correct.
Right.
Okay, that's the worst one. And a misconception is really that you are less capable. You need to figure out a way to do it more differently so that you can fit in better into the world. So
I think you would call that you process things a little differently than other people, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Say?
Yes. And I call it intuitive logic. It's an intuitive logic system that it has to do with all our perceptions and how we process everything that way as opposed to this way. When I use my mind first to figure things out, Irene, I'm in trouble. I am in so much trouble because my mind is saying, well, this is right. And I researched that. And this is the way so-and-so would do it. And this is what the newspaper says. And this is what the expert says. No, I have to come from my guidance, my higher self, my gut, my heart. And so the heart has to partner with the mind, of course, but that's only the beginning. Yeah.
It's a whole different information. So you talk about in your book, Elevating Your HSPness, that there are 4 superpowers of the HSP. I'm all for that. Yeah. Superwoman, here we are. So please explain the first superpower that you call emotional intelligence.
Yes. And that is the intuitive logic system, emotional intelligence, because I say this purposefully, because just the way I want to change the word sensitivity to perception, I also want to change the idea of emotional intelligence to intuitive intelligence. It's a logical system. Just because it comes from a different place, it's an energetic space, does not mean it's less logical. And when we talk about emotions, unfortunately, we're talking about all those labels. You only have a few of them: anger, fear, sadness, right? You
anxiety,
just
whatever it is.
Anxiety, whatever. I have an emotion. No, this is an energetic tapping into what's going on within and without. So it speaks to a whole different level of consciousness, and it speaks to a very different place in yourself that you can access. So it's much better to understand the difference, to not use the word emotion, because emotion doesn't even cover the somatics of it. We all know that mind, body, spirit, blah, blah, blah. Yes, but people talk about emotion as the core that's affecting it. It's the somatics, how feeling an emotion, thinking a thought, having a belief creates this energetic shift in your body for good or not so good, right? For disease or an illness or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you, speaking of that one, that was number one, but number two, you say you have guidance for HSPs when it comes to reeling in the well, let's go to the second. We talked about the intuitive guidance system, right?
Well, a little bit, yeah.
Let's talk about that again. And then I want to talk to you about that third superpower, because I love this one called psychic tentacles. And you also refer to a psychic octopus. They're really cool. So let's talk about that intuitive guidance system and this other part.
Yeah. I think that developing specific tools was so helpful for me because I have a tool. Now I'm going to practice it. I'm at the gym. Now I'm going to practice it. I'm here, so the intuitive guidance system, the IGS, goes along with the unique energetic signature. They're sort of, you learn to identify your energetic signature so that you can live there. That's the place you come from. Whether you're doing an interview, you're driving down the street, you're with your family, you're with a tough customer, it doesn't matter. What you want to do is live from that place. When you are in that place, then you can follow your intuitive guidance system, which is saying, go here, do this, do that, because you're in that energetic space. It's so powerful.
So you're saying, so your intuitive guidance system, when you're in a situation, you kind of get a feeling of the way you should go as opposed to processing it so much in your head, would you say?
Yes, I do. I think the trick where it turns is I'm going down the street and I have a list of things I have to do. But when I get to the light, it just doesn't feel right. But my list says I should turn right, but I don't turn right. And if I have to, I'll make a U-turn. I'm writing a book now called Psychic Games, Playing with Your Higher Self. And yes. So the left, right, straight is that kind of a game where I am driving using that. So the list may not happen in the way it was supposed to, but guess what? My life will.
Right. Maybe you're being guided to make that turn because there's an accident the way that
there you go.
You're being taken.
So many times you run into people you never thought you'd run into. You get the thing. It's a completely different way of living, but you have to learn to trust it to be in that place.
Right. You have to let it in and trust it. So now my favorite, tell us about your third superpower called psychic tentacles. And what's that psychic octopus that you refer to in your book?
It's my favorite too. Again, it saves lives. It saved my life. This is my little octopus.
She's so cute.
Yes. Which was given to me by a little 5-year-old at the time who was learning about the psychic octopus for me. And we started out, and this speaks to your grandson that I really think, you start out with the psychic sponge. So you can show a very young child, fill a bowl of water, take a dry sponge. This is you. The sponge is you. You put it in the water. You get completely overwhelmed with water. You have to wring yourself out. So this is your emotional state. This is the way you feel. You wring yourself out and now you're dry again. So it's conceptually the same. But with high perceptive people, we are literally, energetically taking our tentacles the way an octopus does, and we're reaching out and globbing onto the energy in the environment. And that includes the environment itself, the places and the things and what's going on, even on the internet. You're doing that, right? But with the people, it's even bigger. You're globbing onto their energy. So I feel your anger, I feel your pain, I feel your anxiety, I feel your fear, I feel it all. No wonder I was a wreck. I felt everybody's everything. Of course I cried all the time.
You were everybody. You weren't Heidi. You were everybody else.
Everybody else. I never knew my own emotional state. I just knew I was a wreck because I was taking it all on. So like your grandson, the crying, it almost is like he's the sponge in the water and it overflows. Where does it go? We have nowhere to put it. So when you have your energy in a solid, grounded place, I picture my octopus right here. And I just say to myself, I feel that I'm not in my body. And I reel in my tentacles. And first of all, I don't even think it's ethical. People have a fear of psychic ability, thinking you're going to read their minds. And some people do. I don't really want to do that. I don't think it's ethical. So when my octopus is in, I'm getting message from spirit. I'm living with the messages from spirit because they're in the best interest of all concerned. But I am not taking a tentacle and digging in to find out what's in someone else. And I'm calm.
Would you also call that, would another word for that be detaching from other people's energy, from other people's?
Sure. The issue really is the difference in my work. The pioneers in HSPism Dr. Elaine, they're brilliant. And they're the ones who gave us our start in this, but it still says you have to put up a barrier. You have to protect yourself against. The beauty of the octopus is that you don't have to use the energy to protect against. I could never do that. I was having such a hard time. A bubble, a wall, I just couldn't do it. I was so exhausted from trying. But this way, this is nothing. I'm just living in my little octopus space. And it takes no energy. It takes conscious awareness. But it literally takes no energy.
Right.
Right.
And you just kind of detach. And because you're sensitive, that's why you're perceiving all of this. Someone who's not so sensitive, it's not an issue for them.
Yeah.
But you're protecting yourself. That's
right. There are a lot of people who don't know that that's what's happening, though. They are picking up other people's emotion, and they either, because when they were young, they did have some psychic or interesting experiences, they shut it down, and they're very afraid of it, which is why it's so important to recognize it is an energetic opening and what you can do about that. So I wrote a spirit contract. I don't want any negativity. So in the book, I give an example of my contract, which is, I want to feel safe and protected. I only want white light beings. My husband, Randy, is my gatekeeper. I have a waiting room. So the other day, I kept smelling cigarette smoke in my house, Irene. And there's no reason for that, right? It's a smoke-free zone. And I was on the phone with my friend who's also does a lot of these games with me. And she said, oh my God, it's the people in your waiting room, the dead people. You haven't been opening up to them lately. And they're sitting there just like you would in the old days when a guy was waiting for his wife to have a baby. And they're all sitting there puffing on a cigarette. She said, so you're going to start talking to them again one at a time.
And tell them to put out their cigarettes. It's not good for them.
Enough with the smoke. And I stopped smelling it. And Randy lets them through one at a time because I don't want to be overwhelmed. I don't want them to come in the middle of the night and scream at me, right, to get my attention. I want it to be an easy experience. And I have never had a negative experience with spirit. Never in all these years.
Really?
Never.
That's wonderful.
Never. The only people who come in are white light beings who are loving and generous. They're not always the people that my clients want to see. It will be the abusive stepfather who is there to shift that legacy and make amends. Spirit doesn't have regrets. Spirit doesn't want to really apologize, but as humans, we need to hear that. So that,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? They're really
I've witnessed
trying
that many times with spirit coming through to apologize. And that's how actually you know that it's really that person, because how can the medium possibly know what was going on when spirit comes through to say, I'm sorry for that last fight I had with you, or whatever I said to you, or whatever.
Exactly.
Right. So let me segue from this into that fourth superpower you talk about, which is called the unique energetic signature. What's that all about?
Well, there's a certain exercise that I do with people that is very simple and concrete. Everyone has a truth. When you speak the truth, there's a profound sense of rightness. So when I say my name is Heidi Connolly, I feel that in my body. I feel it. I feel the truth of that and the connection to it. And then when you say a lie, you feel the disconnect with that. You can also feel that in your body. Once you do an exercise like this, you recognize that that is my unique energetic signature. When I'm speaking truth, I get sort of a whoosh of vertical energy. When I am speaking something that isn't the truth, or picking up something that isn't truth, I feel sort of in a numb zone. So I can watch the Food Network and I'll know who's going to win, because I get this whoosh sort of fireworks thing, versus the numb zone. It's a no energy place, but you could feel it as a tingle in your nose or a twinkle in your toes. People feel it all different ways.
Sometimes people get a vibration in their hands,
right,
or in their heart.
Right. All right. So there is a place it happens, and most people are cut off from the head up. They're in their minds, they're in their brains, and they can't even feel in their body. We need to connect the two, which is, I do couch talk, is what my coaching is called. We put the energies on the couch. You need to know your energy so you can be aware of your surroundings in a way that allows you to move through it, navigate it without defensiveness. Yeah, because defensiveness is resistance.
Right. Got that. Tell me what inspired you to write your book, this Elevating Your HSP-ness, because you've only written like 4 books now. Now you're working on to another one. Why HSP? And what's your advice for living a high frequency life that elevates our vibration?
I think it's so hysterical, because when I wrote it, so you look at the cover and it says Elevating Your HSP-ness. And I thought, yes, there's an HSP-ness factor. And then I started to say it, HSP. And everyone said, do you realize what it sounds like when you say that? And I thought, well, we have to learn to be more spiritually aware.
I just got that. Yeah. Okay.
Did you just get it now? Oh, Irene, that's hysterical.
I never occurred to me. That's funny.
That is hysterical. Half the people, it's like those pictures where can you see this or this? And half the people see one or the other, right? Because half the people just think it's, ness, and other people think HS. But I think we need to laugh at that. Uplifting the world. This is about celebration, amplification, and I think highly perceptive people should run the world. Because we don't have to be more vulnerable. We don't have to be more conflicted. We don't have to feel bad about ourselves. We are the contributors. We're the ones we're the glue that holds the planet together. Without us, there would be nothing but war. There would be nothing but disconnectedness, nothing but coldness, nothing but fear. We're the ones who are saying, connect, love, do it through love. Join me, be woke, be sensitive. Think of the other human beings on the planet.
You just described Abraham Lincoln and Mahatma Gandhi. There you go. And there are many others
Yes.
who are HSPs. So when you're going to elevate your vibration, is that through how you're accepting yourself and thinking through things? Is that what does that as an HSP? Being more conscious to who you are?
Well, it's yes, being more conscious about who you are. That comes from going through life in this different way, right? It means you can't do it with your brain. Again, it's a partner, right? I mean, we have to know what we're doing, but we really need to begin to live a different way, because we can't, who wants to amplify a vibration that sucks?
That's negative. Okay,
Right?
right. So now tell us, we learned a little bit of the psychic octopus, the psychic sponge, but you also have this fabulous red coat story. So tell us
Yes.
how they illuminate, how they illumine the world of the HSP. I loved your red coat story.
I love this story. I love this story. I don't have it here, but I have a red, yes. So this is real life for me. When I first started thinking about taking on other people's emotions, I didn't understand it. And people think you mean you're compassionate and sympathetic and empathetic, which is true, but they don't understand you're living in other people. It's like, I am Irene, so I feel everything you're feeling. I don't just get a sense of it. I don't just know how you're feeling. I understand. I'm literally living it. So you could drive down the street and the guy next to you is angry. All of a sudden you're angry and you don't know why. Okay. So the red coat is saying, let's say you're in a restaurant and you wear your favorite red coat. And it's beautiful and it's comfortable. You've had it for a couple of years. It's your right. It's your best, most happiest thing to wear. And you put it in the front, like they hang it up for you. And when you leave, they give it back to you. And you go home. 3 months later, you get a phone call.
Which actually happened to you.
Actually happened. And someone said to me, I think you have my coat. And I said, that's not possible. How could that be possible? It's my coat, it has my buttons, it has a black velvet collar, it flares. I mean, it's just so my coat. And she said, no, I don't think it is. And I'm getting really annoyed. Like, how did you even get my number? This isn't fit. So I asked her how she gets my number. And she said, Guido from the restaurant gave it to her because he knows both of us. I said, all right. So she says, look in the pocket. Just do this for me, please. Look in the pocket. My father gave me something. He died. It's in the pocket. I know it is. And it really means something to me. And I said, no, the pocket's empty. She begs me. I look, I feel it in the corner. There's this little tiny, like angel piece of, you get those little stamped angels. And I find it in there. And I think to myself, oh my God, this isn't my coat. And I realized that we had taken each other's coats. That's how it feels. You are so living in other people, you cannot even imagine that you're not. You don't know what it feels like to be in your own energy. You have never been guided to. You don't know
how to be able to separate out. You don't even know. You don't know how to separate out.
No, because you don't know what your own feels like. Right? How do you?
Right.
So this whole process is saying you can't detach. You can't separate from until you know what you really feel like. So that's the work.
That's the work that you help people with. And I want you to share your client story, because you have this adorable client story about this 90-year-old woman who came to you grappling with a lifelong sense of unworthiness 4 years after the death of her husband, and how you helped her so much. You want to talk to us about that?
Yes.
Because you are a healer and you really do help people so much.
Thank you, Irene. My sister actually knew this woman and recommended she see me because she was grieving so heavily. Now, this was 4 years after her husband died. So she's having her 91st birthday, and she comes to see me and says, and here's a woman who spent her whole life helping other people. She's an author. She's run schools, alternative schools. She's a brilliant woman. And she wrote a book on emotions, expressing your emotions. But she was still so tied to her grief.
She was stuck.
So I started to talk to her husband. And the first thing that came through was how he was saying how proud of her he was, and that he regretted not giving her the space to express herself as much as he had, that she didn't feel the self-worth she should have felt. And she was so overwhelmed. She said it was so true that her husband was the one they focused on. He was the one who was so brilliant. She never felt brilliant. So this conversation, this ongoing conversation with her husband, she thought she was just dealing with, I'm so sad because he's gone. But she was really feeling a lot of anger and guilt for feeling this way, that she never got what she needed in that respect for her intelligence, right? And all that. So, but then she just said, he was saying she needed to feel more self-worth. And she collapsed. She said, I never have. So she's a 90-year-old woman who is high functioning, highly intelligent, highly accomplished, and never felt self-worth.
Never had self-love.
No, never had self-love.
Not even self-love. So you were able to help her?
Yes, because we sat the energy on the couch. We did our couch talk. We identified her signature. It was like lightning struck. She said, I never knew who I was, and now I do.
Isn't that wonderful? You sort of like are a guide with a flashlight. You're shining a flashlight onto who they really are and helping them to uncover those darker places inside.
Yes, which is why it's so important not just to do the mediumship. It's really a doorway.
It really is. So tell me in what ways the HSPs, I think people are kind of getting that as we're discussing it, but how they partner the heart with the mind to uplift the world. And I really want you to tell everybody about your highly sensitive person treatment breakthrough course and anything else you'd like our Grief from Rebirth audience to know about the book, the course, being Heidi. What would you like to tell us? Tell us about the course first.
Okay. The course is 8 modules, about 30 minutes each, and it covers all of these topics to identify and use your unique energetic signature, your intuitive guidance system, the psychic octopus. It goes into a lot of detail. I also incorporate guided meditations that are in the background is flute music created specifically so that, because music automatically bypasses human resistance, but this music is specifically encoded by spirit to integrate the lessons and the information you're learning naturally, easily. You don't have to do anything. So it's a guided meditation, the music is there, and then it brings together everything that you heard in the module. So you can process it on a deep cellular level without having to work at it. It's not about work.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't you tell me that it's really going really, really well? Like you've been getting a lot of tremendous feedback for it?
Yes. From Norway, Africa,
wow.
the UK. Yes, the US, all over. People who finally see the label of HSP somewhere, discover they're an HSP, and then don't know what to do about it because it's all talk about poor you. Irene, I think what I really want people to know is 2 things. It's not about un-HSPing yourself. Forget about it. You are perceptive, yay, hallelujah. And number 2, don't be a victim of it. It's not about getting the world to understand you. It's not about being accommodated like it's a disability. No. So there are many, many blogs about, well, not that many, but to me, it seems like a lot of people are saying it's for people to understand us, how they should no, it's about me understanding me and really knowing that these are gifts and how to use them in my life every minute of every day.
I have to say, honestly, I mean, the way you use your HSP with what you're doing and you're teaching people, I feel that one of the reasons that this podcast is reaching so many people is because I'm an HSP. And when I'm interviewing you, I think I'm honing in to who you are, what your needs are. This is this natural part of me that seems to be clicking, right? And connecting with people. And I credit that to my HSP.
This is it. That's right. It is a wellspring. Our talents and abilities are an energetic wellspring. And if we lock that down, that's just most of us. That's where we shine. I used to be told when I did more editing and self-publishing, that I was channeling people's messages. That's why I could rewrite their books and sound like them.
Same thing, right?
Yes.
And it also gives us tremendous compassion and empathy, which is an HSP trait, because one of the reasons I started this podcast is I don't want people to suffer, and I want them to get healing and give them healing choices. And that is that's an HSP trait also.
It is.
Right?
It is. And so, I would like people to start calling it HPIs. Highly perceptive individuals. So I'm starting a trend right here and now. That's what we're going to call them. Highly perceptive individuals, because we're all unique.
Right. So to my highly perceptive friend, Heidi, when it comes to healing, please explain your comment that what looks like a duck and quacks like a duck is not necessarily a duck.
So that's because we say we get triggered. And so something bothers me. Well, when you're a highly perceptive individual, you have a reaction. And the reaction is you cough, you sneeze, you call them allergies, you feel bad, you cry, you have all these reactions. And a lot of them are physical, which turn into real diseases and illnesses, right? But it's not really what it is at all. These are indicators. They're indicators of your perception that are causing a reaction in your mind, body, and spirit. So when I cough out of nowhere, I'm just, so I was playing a concert when I first started playing again. And I was playing along. All of a sudden I choke, I cough, I can't play. The whole group has to stop. I realized I was having a thought that I wasn't good enough. So I'm in a room, many people, a lot of the musicians, and I think, what right do I have to be here after all these years of not playing? What right do I have? Choke. That is my indicator that a trigger has happened that's caused me to have an energetic response. I don't think to myself, I'm having an emotion, I feel bad. No, I say, what's the indicator? So the duck is not a duck at all. It is not an emotional response out of nowhere. It is an indicator that I am having a thought and a feeling that I need to deal with.
It acts as a guide for you when you are aware of what this is.
Yes.
And then it becomes a guide instead of a hindrance or a problem or whatever.
Absolutely.
Right? And you don't beat yourself up over it. You say, okay, I understand now what's going on. Yeah. And what's your special offer for all the lovely people in our audience who are listening to this interview?
And I just feel them all in advance. I know we're recording this, but I just feel like the whole world is tuning in. I'm so happy. And I have to say, Irene, kudos to you. I love you. I respect you. I honor you. I hold you in my heart so deeply. Our connection is so profound, and you do so much good in the world. I don't even know where to begin. So
just credit to my highly perceptive being.
Mutual, right? It's so beautiful. So yes, my course. For 2 weeks after you hear this podcast, you can get my course on my website, HeidiConnolly.com, for 50% off. And for another 2 weeks after that, if you can't manage that, it will be 25% off. But it is available. There's the book you can get, which is great because then you have it in front of you, and there's nothing like a book. In my humble opinion, there's nothing like a book. And all my other books are on my website, etc. So you can reach me that way, and I do coaching and all the rest of it.
That's fabulous. And by the way, they can take your course. They can reach out to you for mediumship readings. They can.
Yes. And custom music.
And
I have music to stop smoking, to stop drinking. I have music for blood sugar and heart problems. I have music, or you can have a customized recording made to address what your spirit team wants to address.
That is really cool. And what is the Heidi Connolly tip for finding joy in life? You've done 2 other interviews. You had 2 tips for joy. Let's get another one, Heidi.
Yes, yeah. True joy, unconditional love for yourself and the world. That's when you tap into joy.
I could not agree more. Heidi, I just love this uplifting quote from Elevating Your HSP-ness, How to Live High Frequency Life That Amplifies Your Vibration, celebrates your sensitivities, and uplifts the world. And the quote is, "It's up to us, the HSPs of the world, to lead the way with the gifts each and every one of our heightened sensitivities with which we have been blessed." And to this, I add my heartfelt bravo. Thank you for this truly delightful, always an insightful interview that has removed unenlightened stigmas and inspired HSPs to shine their uplifting light in the world. And here is a loving reminder, everyone, that you can see the show notes and all Grief and Rebirth podcast episodes on ireneweinberg.com. And make sure to follow us and like us on social at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts. And as I like to say, to be continued. Many blessings. Thank you, Heidi.
Oh,
and bye for now.
Yeah, blessings.
Blessings.